You can see candidly, but you're fucked basically. That's the whole thing. That this is really how it works with our unnamed podcast. It's an unnamed podcast. Like, how safe did you think this would be? This was easily the best intro that we had
here as well. That's jokes.
That's jokes
on this unnamed podcast.
Yeah. So what's the deal? What's going on with this?
Ben, well, it's an interesting story of trials and tribulations and religion and never giving up and never backing down and
love and hope, misguidedness. Yeah.
And
are we still talking about the podcast here? I feel like we've gone slightly off piece.
Yeah, what my guy? What are you saying?
I've still got two of you.
I know there's just one of me frozen in the corner.
Yeah, it's lit. I like it. This is really in line with our style right now. We'll just see where it all goes. In the meantime,
we'll see where it goes,
I'm just
man.
happy to get you on the line, Breda, and to chat to you about what all the cool fucking things you're doing and writing and fuck knows what else things you're doing. Falling out of a plane whilst writing a script, whilst directing the script, whilst being in the script, whilst falling out of a plane. So, mate, talk to me, because I don't even know. Like, last time I caught up with you, you were in a plane.
Can we?
Then you were about.
Can we start?
Film, mate. It always started. It's always a go.
Can we start? Well, I want to start on the fact that I want to start with a little round of applause for Warheads getting nominated for
Olivier.
Absolutely, yeah, dude. Like, tell us, like, dude, how was that? Like, that must have been absolutely insane for you, especially being like someone who's, you know, kind of started out in that and really committed to that kind of world as a performer. Yeah, how was that, man?
It was dope, man. It was sick. It was more just like, I mean, obviously it's surreal and all that, but I was like, because when I got the call, I was rehearsing for that Stephen Graham film I was doing.
Yeah.
And I was literally like walking to go get a coffee. We were on a break, and I knew the Olivier nominations were coming out that day, but I didn't really think much else of it. Only like thing I thought of it was because I had this little picture of an Olivier on my wall, and I used to look at it every morning and just think that'd be so dope. But I didn't necessarily consider it was going to be for this play, because like this play was so, it's difficult. Like, nobody wanted the play.
Yeah, you had to fight to get that
you know what I'm saying? Like, the court turned down the play. Our caller turned down the play on me. Like, everybody had turned down the play on some level. You know what I'm saying? Like, and even when we were doing it, it was kind of like, oh, this play is offensive to certain people, and it's like it's a guy play, and like people are throwing around words like toxic masculinity and shit like that, which I never knew was a thing last year. Yeah, blah blah blah. So I was like, it felt like a play I wanted to do, but that wasn't necessarily of the moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Then when I was walking to go get a coffee, and I got a call from my publicist, and I thought she was calling me about an invoice. Like, I thought I owed her money or something. So I was like, oh fuck, like.
Not working right now.
Answer it. Yeah.
Over the hard.
I'm trying to get it
back in a week.
Yeah. So I like answered it after, like, it was on its last ring, and I just went, all right, fuck it. So I answered it, and she was like, Taz, have you heard? I was like, I heard about what? She goes, Warheads is nominated for an Olivier, and I just went, fuck off! He's nominated for an Olivier! And I just started rolling around on the floor in the middle of the street. And then I started screaming and shit. And then I started running around. And the two guys that I was there with, the two castmates of mine, they were like, what happened? Who died? And I was like, no, wait, I've got to call my dad, wait. And it took me like a solid 5 minutes to I've got a good Stephen Graham story about that later as well. I called my dad, and went through the whole thing, and then called my girlfriend, told her about it. And it was just a very surreal thing, innit? Because it's like, it's such people work their whole lives for one of those awards. Do you know what I mean? Like, even just the nomination is something that you can take forward for the rest. You are forever going to be an Olivier nominated creative of some sort, and that's something that opens up. Not so. Like, I wasn't excited about the award as such, because at the end of the day, what can you do with it? You can't. Like, it just sits there. But like, I was excited about the fact that finally I had like a little stamp of approval with which I could then go take my next play seriously and actually read it, because it's better than what you think I am. You know what I mean? Like, don't underestimate me because I haven't written it before, or because of the way I speak, or because of where I'm from, or whatever. Like, read it with an actual, or even like investors trying to get money for players and stuff. It's like, take me seriously, because it could actually do all right. I'm not saying it will, but there's a larger chance of them, you know, taking the time to go through the script. That's what I was excited about.
It's like the same thing where I've always found it really funny when people have this thing like award winning, or you know what I mean, like nominated them and it's like, you don't, because for me it's like I don't necessarily want to be that person that needs to tell you like, oh, guess what, I won for this, that and the other. But as you said, it's like, it's the opportunities I think that come with that, and using that kind of title is, you know, it's all bullshit at the end of the day. Like, as you said, what are you going to do with a fucking title? That doesn't change who you are as a human. But what it can do is absolutely open up doors and, like, kind of have validation in the industry almost. So
it's like you go in with a little badge. It's just like, you know what I'm saying? It's like every time you meet somebody and they know about it or find out about it, it's like, it's used to be, do you know what I'm saying? It used to be like, who's this guy who I don't know? And now it's, who's this guy who I don't know? I'm still someone they don't know, but at least it's like, who's this guy who I don't know who has an Olivier nomination? You know what I'm saying? Like, it just becomes that. So they side-eye you a little bit more, rather than just like another bit of the cattle call. Whether it be in any aspect of, you know, wanting to make a film or wanting to make a play, or even going in as an actor or anything like that.
I think one of the going back to what you were saying about like people chasing that, or like something that they aim towards. I think what's interesting though is you find the people that, such as yourself, who, you know, you're like, I didn't expect it to happen so soon. Obviously, it's something that you would like, but I know, like, from what I know of you, like, you know, for the years we've known each other, you're just someone who just wants to constantly be making things. You're already like in the middle of one, you're already like, all right, this is what I'm gonna do next, and then I'm already like getting meetings for the next one, so on and so forth. So you're always somebody who's constantly pushing forward. And I feel like, you know, that's more of the attitude I think that's got you there quicker, as opposed to being like, this is going to be the one that's going to get me. You're like, I don't care what this gets me. I just know that it's going to lead to the next one and the next one. And that's kind of how you...
Exactly. And like, because I have friends who call me all the time. Like, I had a call today. I'll not say her name, bless her, because she's a really nice girl. But like, and there's quite a few people who do that. And they like call, even before this, you know, just because they know that I write and I do to some extent do the things that I say I'm going to do. They'll call me and be like, I've got this great idea. It's going to bang, and it's, you know, it's going to be great, and it's going to be huge. And when they start using words like huge and bang and great, I'm just a bit like, not only do I disbelieve it, like that's by the by, because like, same as I'm saying, I'd like to be taken seriously by people. So I don't like to not take other people seriously, but I don't speak like that when I speak about work. I don't say, you know, this is going to bang, this is going to be huge. I just say, this is something I feel really strongly about and I want to do it. And it's never about the hugeness of it or the bangness of it or the greatness of it. But because when you think along those terms, it's almost like because regardless of how well things go, it's a fucking marathon to get anything that you want to do in life. And as soon as you start to go, this next one is going to make everything else easy, then it kind of instills the image that you're not really prepared to go for the marathon run. Do you know what I'm saying? You're just looking for that one little taxi that's going to take you. Whereas like, actually, I'm good to run the marathon, whether there's a taxi along the way or not. That's a weird sort of analogy. No, same as you guys. You know what I mean? Like, no, fully. You guys, that's why we're friends.
I've had you know, the last show I did, I had to change cinematographers for that same reason, just because, like, you know, great guys, like, you know, one of my very good friends, but it was just difference of intention, you know, where there was a certain element of where his head was at, where he was propounding on like the outcome and trying to reverse engineer, and that being the process for making the film. Like, okay, we're trying to we've got to be, let's make sure we're doing something here that's going to get recognized by, the biggest festivals, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, mate, I'm just trying to make this directing a film is fucking hard enough, bro. I'm just trying to make the fucking film. Like, I'm just trying to make sure that people making the film actually have a good time making the film. Because I could make a short film that is Oscar nominated, but everyone was like, I fucking hated making that film. And then everyone is like, oh, it was so stressful. But then they turn around and they're like, oh, but we won an Oscar, or we got nominated, and then that would make it worth it. But for me, it's like, I'm similar to you in the sense that I genuinely don't care. Like, not to say that the recognition wouldn't be cool, I wouldn't like manipulate the shit out of it for networking, like, of course, but I genuinely don't care. Like, it isn't part, it's no part of making the film. And so,
yeah,
it's
not part of the conversation.
Yeah. For me, creativity isn't that. Like, business is that. Reverse engineering an outcome you want in business, absolutely. And that comes into play in, like, maybe in the decision I make when I'm committing to write something. Like, I have got 15 story ideas. One of them only 2 people in the world will actually watch, because it's like some weird art house film that's like not in English. And then the other one is probably like commercially viable, right? So in that moment, I reverse engineer some sort of outcome. I go, okay, of these 2, I don't see me ever getting financing for this one, but I can at least see me getting financing for this one, right? And then that's it. And then after that, I kind of go write the thing, and then like, that's the one we're trying to make or something. Or someone gives me a script, I'm like, all right, cool, let's go make that, because it'll be fun. But I think you have, so I'm not saying like I encourage a naivety about like the commercial viability of the project you're working on, be it in theatre or film or otherwise. You always want to be like, is there an audience for this? Is there a market for this? Does it? But also at the same time, if it speaks to you, you aren't an anomaly, unfortunately. Like, as unique as we all like to think we are, there are so many people with your shared interests, values. So if it can mean that much to you, and it's something you really want to like see or experience, there will be other people that resonate with that if you are able to communicate it in the way that excites you. And so the problem with being too outcome oriented is that then the second that you're doing tricks for treats, instead of just actually listening to that intuitive voice that excites you about making it in the first place, then you aren't going to connect with the people like you at the very least, who are the people that are the most likely to be receptive to it, because you're not channeling it from the place that's like it's most authentic, if it makes sense. And so that's also the only way you can be, really, in my opinion.
And it's also because like what we do is so ephemeral and subjective anyway.
For sure.
That anybody who acts like they know, like they do the research, you can do some research and you can see, but nobody, like, first of all, nobody knows anything, whether it's in this industry or any industry. Nobody knew that fucking coronavirus was going to come. We were going to be locked down for 6 months. Nobody knows shit. Like, it's the whole Confucius thing, he who knows he knows nothing knows something. And especially here, nobody knows anything despite any research. And because like the play again is testament to it, because first of all, it's not of the times, it's not of the didn't have half the budget of so it's like the other nominees are Royal Court, play at Royal Court, play at Stratford East, the play at the Bush. These are all great venues with a lot of backing and a lot of money behind it, and they do great things. Don't get me wrong, this isn't me, having a rant about them. They do great work, but they have a lot more capability to do that stuff. And it's like, a play that was made with IKEA boxes still is in the same, because it came from because it came from a pure place. And it's the same with like loads of films like Dirty Dancing. You know what I mean? Nobody wanted to make it, but then they made it, and it's one of highest grossing films of all time. Do you know what I'm saying? That banged, but nobody was saying, "Hey, this is going to be huge." This is gonna bang.
And also, it's like, what I like that saying, it's not part of the times, which is weird. That's okay. So that's a big debate in itself, because it's like, was that play not of the time? Like that. What's really refreshing about Warheads is that it's this like really open exploration of like vulnerability and masculinity, you know. And it's weird that you were like, people were like, there was this opposition in like people thinking it was like, oh, I don't know, promoting toxic masculinity, which isn't a concept that makes sense for anyone that ever uses that word. But it's interesting because I was like, wait, it's so not an archetypical play about masculinity. You know, it's literally like saying, hey, this is kind of the harmful ramifications of like what many men go through.
Yeah.
And we don't talk about it very much. And it's a whole play, and it's like in an age where it's, you know, where we're very socially, politically conscious. That's completely, if anything, of the time. But it's weird, you know, people let these like Jordan Peterson calls them like ideological pathologies kind of really get in the way of them being objective enough to appreciate, okay, well, this might just actually be different too. So if it's not part of the trend, like surely that's cool too. Like that's worth looking at for a second and be like, okay, this is kind of from the left. Where did this come from? And what is it trying to say? And it's very easy to get caught up in like trying to follow the herd. And the thing is, if you're trying to, Justin Timberlake said something that stuck with me. I think this was in an interview when I was like 16, and it stuck with me for like well over a decade, show my age. And he was talking about the success he had with Justified, right? And then this is now actually when he came back 2016 with Future Sex Love Sound. One of the best albums ever, if you ask me. And he goes, and everyone's like, oh, well, you like, was there pressure to like replicate songs like Cry Me a River and Rock Your Body? And he was like, honestly, like the one thing I know is that you can't recreate a moment. You have to create a new one. And I love that he said that. And he did it, right? Like and then Future Sex Love Sound, every song on there did better than every song on Justified. And it's like that mindset of like, okay, look, this did this, and these kind of films have done this year. But I can't, there's no point in me trying to replicate the success of those stories. That's a moment that's already been, right? So it's actually better to dive into the unknown. Yeah, like we all get the Marvel machine and how that works and how they have a replication system. But at the same time, you've got to like look at Joker, right? Joker didn't need like 100 mil to make a bill, you know? Yeah. And it didn't need that predetermined format. It needed Joaquin Phoenix, perfect, to be fair. But it didn't need that predetermined format to make a lot of money commercially either, right? And the whole process they developed was like on the basis of like, we don't know. Like Joaquin's doing a different version of a performance every single take. Like that's how much uncertainty there was in the development of that film, and it still was commercially successful. And so that I think is people need to, especially artists, need to get a lot more confident with just diving into the unknown. And if you aren't outcome oriented, then you're not afraid to fail in doing that. But then, like yourself, you just have this conviction to it, and then that's when you actually surprisingly do reap the rewards. You know, that's like you're such a good testament to that. So it's amazing. Zoom is giving us 10, so we might have to jump back in after because we were a bit late setting up because of
no worries. Even the conviction though, I just want to, because like conviction is something like I've written down things. I think whenever you say something that's interesting, I'm going to write it down on my arm and then we'll go back to it at some point. So I wrote conviction and I wrote toxic masculinity because I want to dissect that fucking term with you guys because it's going to be hilarious. The whole thing about conviction as well, like I think it's something that needs to be cultivated and something that you need to you need to find that out for yourself, you know, like because I for some reason the things that I've done whilst I've been the most inexperienced at doing have been the most successful ones that I've done. As soon as I become more experienced and start to, so like it happened with the first short that I made, did more than every other short I've done after that. Because as soon as I did a short and I was like, oh, cool, I know what I'm doing now. And let me go do this thing because this thing is like what I'm supposed to be doing. Then that's nobody wanted to fucking watch it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think, or maybe not even didn't want to fucking watch it, but it didn't have that. It would maybe be okay. It'd be a good film, but it wouldn't be something that people would be like, that's got something very pure, untangible behind it. And I think that's what happened. And I hope that you probably don't mind me saying this, Ben, but that's probably where, because for me, like, for example, Multifacial, you edited
Yeah, man.
Multifacial for me. That was a very pure story
Yeah,
for me.
yeah. Well,
And that has got me so many things. Like that got me my manager, that got me my publicist, that got me my agent, that got me parts, that got me. Whereas then when we made Neon, it was a brilliant film. Like it looked great, and you edited it fucking brilliantly, and it sounded great, and I thought the performances were good. Maybe mine not so much, but but it didn't come from a place like that's not really who I am. Do you know what I mean? That story. Like in essence, I'm not the right person to be telling that story.
Interesting. That's an interesting.
I think
it's something I realized in hindsight.
Yeah, I think that was. But again, though,
Oh,
back to that you found generic, or something that that you wanted to replicate the same thing again. You just wanted to try something new. So I think whatever the outcome was, it doesn't matter because you tried and you went for it. And ultimately, we still got something we're proud of, and all the things that we learned from. It's helped me massively as well, bro. Like, it was the first thing I got to direct as in terms of narrative, and I'm forever grateful for that you gave me the opportunity to do that because no one else was. You know what I mean? Like nobody's gonna go like, oh, bro, like, I trust you. Here you go. Here's the script. Like, make the thing. So. You know what I mean? Like, so again, like, you had that level of faith in me, and likewise, I knew that you were able to give me something that was, that had heart and had something to work with.
And
very
you
much
did,
like,
and you did a fucking brilliant job with it. Is my point, because you were pure in your wanting to do that. Whereas remember when we were trying to make that into a feature, the reason I could never really develop it into a feature is because I had nothing. Like all I had was that one scene.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I couldn't really build upon it because it wasn't me. And I spent so much time saying, no, I'm working on it. And at the end, I just went, why isn't this not working? And I just realized it's because it's not really what you want to do right now.
Yeah, exactly.
It's what you think you should do. Do you know what I'm saying? Tell a story in that subject matter. So, even though the short was great and you did a fucking amazing job with it, and I'd do it again in a heartbeat. Do you know what I'm saying? But what I'd do again in the heartbeat is send you something which I know is something that from the heart I want to do, despite anyone saying that that's not what I should be doing.
Yeah.
Rather than doing something that everybody thinks is
the right idea. It's the right time or whatever.
Do you know what I'm saying?
It's interesting. Sorry, go on. Finish your December.
No. Go.
It was just we were talking about making things for the times, and that gets brought up a lot when you look at the Oscars and you look at the nominees usually every year for the Academy Awards. Because I was looking at I was reading some articles on Nolan. I wrote something about him not long ago. He did this letter about the state of the cinema after COVID and how we're going to have to sort of deal with that. And one of the things they were saying was that why is it that it took Nolan so long to get a nomination? Dunkirk was obviously his first one as nomination for Best Director. And they were saying if you look at all of his work, none of it fitted into the agenda. None of it was about homosexuality identity or gender or about war, which are usually the things that the Academy looks for as a general scope, for claiming that it's worthy, of an award. So it's interesting that, he's someone again who just goes, I'm not going to look at what everyone else is doing and follow that trend. He's I'm just going to make what I feel is true with what aligns with my morals and my ideas and just fucking go for it, and then eventually it comes around anyway. Do you know what I mean? Eventually, just when it comes, it comes. So
yeah. But I think there's a naivety that needs to be, and it's like that thing you're talking about with. It's not a naivety, but it's almost like a blindness to all the other noise that's coming your way, and it's almost like making a film like you are the only one who is ever going to watch it is the only way in which you can operate. You know what I'm saying? Write it in your house, film it in your house, as if you were in your house, even if you go to external locations. But just write it in singularity. Don't tell no one about it except for the people that you want to collaborate with. And then at that point, go shoot it. And don't tell no one you're shooting it. Just make the thing and then send it out into the world and see how it goes. Rather than, because if you get too many voices too early on, then you start you inevitably just fucking start shaking and you start going like this and and you don't know which way you're going anymore. Where making Singularity, put it out, and then let the world decide what they think of it. Because if they hate it, at least you made what you wanted to make. Like even now with the next play that I want to write, I got so many, I chatted to so many people who are like mentors of mine and stuff like that, who are doing really great things. And they were all like, so what are you going to do now? And I told them about what I wanted to do now. And they were like, oh, really?
That's great.
I was like, yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good, man.
I was like, yeah. They're like, well, why don't you do this? And it was like something more along the lines of what I was already doing. I was like, not just because I've already done that, but because like, why, if I try to like just rebrand the same shit and like, instead of it soldiers, now it's going to be firemen. You know what I mean? It doesn't, I'm never going to be able to make it as good as that thing. Why would I want to talk about, toxic masculinity can be a theme because for some reason I think I know that well because I'm probably very toxically masculine myself. But, it could be a theme and stuff. I'll probably put it in by accident, but I don't know if I can do something because even like Warheads wasn't meant to be something about toxic masculinity. That's just what it ended up being. It was just a story about my best friend. And I think it's not. I think actually the problem is more thinking in topics rather than in stories. As soon as you like try and brand it and go, these are the themes, these are the topics which you inevitably have to do when you're pitching to people. That's when it starts to die a little bit because you're no longer thinking about like what is it I want to make, and the themes will just be a somebody else says.
Yeah.
But actually, no, I feel I vibe you on that, right? Because what you were saying about like how the stuff that you feel like has brought you the most traction, so to speak, is the stuff that like you just did, right? Like, or like just wrote. Like, it wasn't like there was so much like conceptual like marketing thought or anything like that, like marketplace visioning or anything like that. And it's similar here because I beef story all the time personally. I beef it hard, mainly because I'm not good at it. But the thing, the work of mine that's brought me the most traction, or it's like I can send it to anyone at any level, and they're like, okay, like we can have a conversation. Is a film that has no story. It like, and it's weird because I say to people like, but the film that gets me in the most conversations breaks the most rules. Like it doesn't follow like any of like what's that How to Kill a Cat, the famous like screenwriting book that we all read.
Blake Snyder.
Yeah, it doesn't do any of that. It doesn't. I mean,
no. But let me interject on that because that when I say like think story not themes, I don't mean think structure because I'm shit at structure too. Like half the shit don't have any structure.
Yeah.
But I mean think like yours does have a story. It's just probably not structured.
Honestly,
what do you mean? Of course it does. I've seen your films. They have a story.
No, the ones that other people write do, and they're arguably like they are what they are, right? But they've never brought as much traction per se as the first short I did, which was my own writing, and that film was the least self-conscious one of all of them.
The French one.
Yeah, it was the least self-conscious one. It's the one where it's like I wasn't there, and there isn't a theme either. There isn't a theme. The theme is really nuanced. It's just like a character who doesn't, she's in an environment which doesn't reflect her values, and she's trying to escape that so she can like it's not really like a unit.
That's a story.
No, of course
it's a fucking story.
Everything is a story though, so of course it's a story, but it isn't like you can box that like boom, ba boom, ba boom. You can't do any of that stuff with it, right? Absolutely. And so you don't care. You just go and you're like, I've got this character and I've got this environment. Suba is this place that I have like a really rich connection with. I just want to write conversations that happen there, and I'll tie them all together. And then you make some arc and story out of that character. I think character arcs individually are very important. You can't ignore that. But other than that, that's all it is, right? You just connect to the character that you have in your head, maybe the place that you have in your head or whatever, and that's it. And because it comes from such a place of deep connection for you, you can't ignore that might be channeling the best artistic integrity in you, and therefore like creating like your best work in a way that if it gets too constructed by like the objectivity of like themes and narrative or marketplace or genre, that isn't bad. That's not what I'm saying. But it's not coincidental that a lot of artists have that experience that you're discussing or that I'm discussing or that it's weird that we don't have that discussion more often. We do, but it also gets like stuffed down by
it gets pushed down and suppressed.
Yeah, suppressed. It gets like suppressed.
Yeah. Where it's like, you can have all your artistic, what do you call it? You can have all your artistic processes, but I still want you to do that.
Yeah,
but
it's weird.
Do it like this.
From a financial standpoint or from an industry standpoint, it's like, look, the same thing happens, right? The filmmakers that go on to be our icons, they all blew up from individuality, right? Like following their innate artistic self, their authentic self. And then they blow up and we're all like, and these guys become the gods. And then they kind of do that forever, but then they find obviously a market in their own style. And then the industry tells us like, oh yeah, but you can't do that. Basically, like, we don't want to fund those things. It's like, but every single time, that's what makes the gods. That's what makes the gods, right? And there's the commercial side that makes like the studios like gods. But what always makes like the artists gods is that like standout quality that's not replicated anywhere else by them. So it's like the Barry Jenkins or the Quentin Tarantinos. Like those guys make very like uniquely individual styles of films. And so,
but then even with that, it's like the term God. Like that's something that fucking. I mean, don't get me wrong. I believe those guys are gods too. But at the same time, the term God sometimes annoys me because, like, for example, you'll send a script to someone and they'll go, like, for example, if you're doing something that's visual, right? Either film, TV, short film, whatever the fuck it is, something that's going to be on a screen, whether it be a laptop or a cinema. And they'll go, that they'll quote a rule to you that you think that they think you don't know. They'll be like, so it's actually a lot more powerful to show something rather than say it. Yeah, I know, fam. I know. I've heard the rule before. You ain't the first person to tell me that rule. And then I'll be like, yeah, but that's not what I'm trying to do. And then they'll say, I'll quote Mamet, or I'll say, what about when David Mamet does it? What about when? And I even hate having to feel the need to have to quote David Mamet or have to quote Aaron Sorkin. Or have to quote, because like to me those are gods, right? And they go, because like anything of Aaron Sorkin's, like they talk the whole time. Yeah. You watch The West Wing, his TV series. They're always fucking talking, and then their answer to you is like, yeah, but they're masters. It's like, okay, I will grant the fact that I ain't Aaron Sorkin. I will grant you that. But what makes Aaron Sorkin is just the fact that he has had certain checkpoint successes. So the difference is the trajectory. You know what I'm saying? And it only takes something like an award for someone to go, oh, actually, I don't need to tell you about that rule anymore because you obviously know it. Well, I knew it 2 days ago before the award came through. But now just because it's 2 days later and something has happened which has nothing to do with work, you all of a sudden believe that I know that rule. Do you know what I'm saying? Or even when it comes to like that individuality as well, I think there's a lot of misconception as to what that like for to be the right person to tell something. It's like that only really applies to like very personal stories. Like if you're an LGBTQ person of the LGBTQ community and you're telling an LGBTQ story, cool, yeah, that is something that you need to find yourself identified in. But what about Westerns? I ain't never been a cowboy. You ain't never been a cowboy. Tarantino ain't never been a cowboy, but somehow Tarantino's really good at doing Westerns. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So what makes Tarantino the right person to tell a Western? Because he don't have no horse, to my knowledge. What is that thing? Well, maybe it's just that he fucking loves Westerns. And he says it in interviews all the time, innit? He loves watching spaghetti Westerns. They're his favorite kind of film. So he wanted to make a film like that. And there's nothing wrong with that. And that should apply to everything else. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I'm saying? You don't have to have necessarily lived through it to be the person. You just have to feel really strongly about it.
Yeah, of course, for sure, man. I think the politicism behind film is like I think like you guys all know me well enough. Like I couldn't give a fuck. Like mainly because I'm fully willing to take the bullet. because I don't necessarily believe there is anyone that at the time I'm making a film or at the time that's my focus. I don't believe there's a human being that has the same level of conviction that I do. So I don't care what anyone else thinks about why I'm doing it, because I don't believe there's anyone that could survive the emotions I put my through when I'm trying to make a film. So it's like, I don't care if you think I'm the right person or not, or because there's no way you could care about the film more than I did. And so any of those characters that I'm trying to tell their story, I'm not in any dispute about how much thought or care or research or work I've done in trying to tell their story. And if it doesn't land, then that's fine with me. I'm willing to make that mistake, or I'm willing for it to not be something that connected as I intended it to. But that isn't even what I'm trying to achieve in the first place. I'm not really making films for people to like them or dislike them. I'm making them because I really want to see them, and no one's going to make that film unless I make it. So I want to see it because that's a really satisfying experience to make the film with those people, and then to get to watch it and be like, I did it, cool. This is what was in my head. This is awesome. And then it's exciting to give people the chance to fight over it in their own community and be like, oh, I didn't like it, I did like it, or I loved it, or I didn't like it, or blah, 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 blah. And if you start making it all about me, you're missing the fucking point. It's not a portrait. There's me in there somewhere, whether it's a story that really is personal or it's not. I had to be able to relate to it in some way or care about it, like you're saying. But people have to, I think, enjoy making the film for themselves, and don't get too caught up in like how other people react to it, because there's always going to be people that have something to say objectively about it that maybe is completely out of context. Like you say, the LGBT thing, like the next film anyone sees of me is going to have, very strong themes relating to that community. And that's something I'm going to have to do with people like, but you're not an LGBTQ representative. I'll be like, well, I just made a whole film about it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that kind of sounds like representative of someone who cares about that community. But it's fair enough if that's your opinion. Like, cool, it is what it is. It is what it is.
But that's also it's so contradictory on every single level when that kind of stuff happens, because it's so like you hear the debate of like of inclusion and there should be more stories for. I'm not just talking about LGBTQ. I'm talking about every single minority community. There needs to be more stories for it. But the problem is if so, I have two problems with those kinds of stories. Is, for example, the same as like for a period, it was like for there to be a really strong female character, it almost has to be like the whole film is about, being a female. And then it started to slowly shift into, actually, no, they could just be really strong female characters in films that have nothing to do with being a female. Or same with like BAME characters. You know what I'm saying? It used to be like we're in the Sydney Poitier area. Like I just finished reading his book, and his story is amazing. And in the Sydney Poitier area, it was like Poitier era. It was, he could only really be in films that were about being black. And now it's shifted to, people as good as Sidney Poitier. Well, anybody who's good as Sidney Poitier of any race, Latino, Chinese, black, they can be in films that has nothing to do with being that, but they're just a great actor and they can fit it. And that hasn't gotten to the point with that hasn't gotten to that point yet with LGBTQ. Most of the stuff that comes out kind of revolves around that theme. But when you try to step out of that box and do something for that, even though you're not a representative of the community, it's a problem. It's like, well, but that's defeating your own purpose. Like I wrote, the next play that I want to do is a female lead because it's based on my sister. And there's a trans character in it. And the character could have worked equally as well if it was any other kind of person, but I wanted to make it trans, and I had a few mentions to it being there, but I didn't make it a central theme. And a lot of the feedback came back in the area of like, so why have you made this character trans? I go, why not? And they go, well, because there's not really any mention of it in the story. I'm like, but trans, like, again, without being a representative of it, trans people have a lot more like things they deal with on a daily basis than being trans. That's just who they are.
They are like human beings,
It's nothing to
like
do
everyone else, right? Jesus.
There's nothing. It's that's not what their focus is. My focus every day ain't on being white. Your focus every day ain't on being black. Your focus every day ain't on wearing glasses. You know what I'm saying? Like it's
no pun intended.
It's just yeah. It's just that's what you are. That's what you do. And the sooner we get past that bit, and then as soon as people are like, yeah, but now's not the right time because you can get a lot of backlash from it. So I'm like, well, now you're just convincing me to do it. Now you're
telling me I shouldn't. Yeah.
Now you're just convincing me. Because if it's something that I feel strongly about, and you say actually I shouldn't do it because so and so is going to be pissed, I want to piss so and so off. As long as I'm not pissing off the community that I am trying to, like, misrepresenting them in that sense would be a problem. You know what I mean? If you're misrepresenting information, or if you're misrepresenting things they go through, like, that is something that needs to have research and needs to be properly implemented. But then anybody who does have a problem with it isn't shooting towards the same goal that everybody should. And at that point, I want to stick my middle finger up at you. And it's probably not, and it's usually not the people of that particular community who have a problem with it, as long as they're not misrepresented. And I'm not just talking about LGBTQ, I'm talking about everything. Sorry, that was a rant.
That was a great rant, man. That's kind of what this thing is. But I mean, it's like almost like a bit of a dichotomy, because it's like that. But this is why I just come back to the thing of like I choose not to care, man. And it's equally about people liking the film also. Like someone comes up to like, oh, I liked that. It's not that I'm I'm not sounding like an arrogant way, like I don't care. Like it doesn't like, I'm grateful if someone likes something you've done, right? But I feel like that's the only way to stay straight down the middle, is to like not really care about people liking it as equally as I don't really care about people not liking it, right? But just to have this complete confidence as to why it was made, like the why. Yeah. And if I can truly understand that, because it's like you said, actually, you said something interesting about like, you know, being diligent in your understanding of like the characters you're representing. And it's like, you can still get that wrong, surprisingly. Like you can still kind of get that wrong, even with like all the right research, like, because you have to understand that people's belief systems or people's perspective on things is like this, it's like this coercion of objective facts and like perceived beliefs. And like in the middle of that somewhere, there's actually like a graph of this or like a chart of this. In the middle of that is what people believe, like in terms of like, you know, politically, or, you know, even in terms of facts that they're willing to accept, right? But a lot of people don't sit in the portion of like objective facts, right? So you could, you know, like Taj, you could spend a year in Zambia with me and my family, or, you know, Ben, you could spend, you know, a year with me and my family in Zambia, and you could be very endowed in that community, right? And then tell a film about that. And there would still be people based on their values and based on kind of their own experiences, and then like some maybe objective facts about, or maybe more so less than objective facts, their own bias maybe. They would have a way of perceiving that story on the basis of understanding that you're the person that told it, right? That wouldn't allow them to perceive that it was done with actually some integrity and a lot of truth and actual experience. But it's just the way it is. We can't assume that the person that's watching our film is any modicum of like truth, you know? Like, and so it just, that is what's cool about film, right? That's why I like filmmakers like Nicholas Winding Refn, where it's like he goes to Cannes and half of Cannes is like applauding him for like half an hour, and the other half of Cannes is like spitting at the screen and throwing things at the screen. That's like people spitting at the screen at Cannes. That's insane. That's kind of what I want to do. Like, that's amazing, because now you've just created a discussion or an argument, one of the two, and that's great. And if like Joker did that, people seem to forget that when Joker like first banged out, it was getting like all of this heat for like being like, well, we maybe should ban this film. It's like, you know, it's like promoting gun violence and blah 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 blah. Like now, obviously, now it's won an Oscar, and everyone's like, "Oh, it's a great film." It's like historic now.
Yeah, it was brilliant. Oh, amazing.
There was a little time there where we were like, "Oh, is this going to get them in trouble?" You know, it was that weird. It was a weird period of time when Joker first was like banging out in festivals in Venice and that. We were like, "Oh, has this like kind of backfired?" And they're getting heat for this, even though everyone the consensus seems to be it's an amazing film. Is the focus going to be too negative to make everyone else like open to this film? And it just did the two. It had its little journey where it's like people tried to do that to it and worked really hard to try and like stuff that narrative down its throat. But ultimately, fortunately, in that case, the work was just too fucking damn good, and it just kind of sailed above that. And that's great. Like you kind of want that journey.
People forget so quickly. Like people have very short attention spans and memories. Like so, as soon as again Oscar, oh yay! I loved it all along. It would never.
There was no concern that now that it's won an Oscar, more people are going to see it. This could like set off gun violence. All like no, everyone stopped caring about that now.
I've got this whim that I've got this itch that I'm trying to scratch about telling an Arabic story. At some point, it's something I'm teetering with right now with like beat sheets and stuff. And part of me was like, when I put who wrote it, I had this thought for a split second and I slapped myself in the face. When I put who wrote it, should I put written by Tariq Yassin or written by Taz Skylar? Because I was like,
this is a good conversation.
As soon as people read an Arabic story about Muslims from Taz Skylar, why the fuck is this white boy who looks white and has blue eyes telling an Arabic story? And I thought, oh, should I just save myself the aggro? I was like, no, actually, anybody who gives me aggro is someone I want to get into a fight with anyway. You know what I mean? It's going to be written by Taz Skylar, because that's what my friends call me. That's what everybody calls me. And anybody who has a problem with it, I'm not even going to tell them I'm Arabic and I come from a Muslim family. I'll just have a fight with them because they're dickheads to start with. You know what I mean? And it's the same with like because people love to. I even call my like I make fun of the fact that I'm white and stuff, or that I have white skin. When people want to peg me as a white boy, like a couple of people have said, like, "What do you know, white boy?" And I just let it sit because there's no point in trying to argue with that person because that you've never called me a white boy. And that's not the reason that we get along. We get along for many reasons, but that is one of the reasons because you never have that thing. But they don't know that I grew up in a Latino community. My first language is Spanish. Do you know what I'm saying? They don't know I went to a Spanish fucking school. And I was the only one with lighter skin, even though I grew up there and I consider myself to be Spanish. And then when I'm with Arabic people or Muslim people, it's sometimes the same. And it's like, you don't know my dad's Muslim. I do Ramadan. Do you know what I mean? Just because I have blue eyes, my mom's my mom's English, okay, but that's nothing to do with that. And by trying to fit into their box, you are defeating the purpose of wanting to do it in the first place, which is that everybody. There's a great concept called diffusion of sympathy. It's a Darwinian concept. Have you ever heard of it?
I haven't, no.
So diffusion of sympathy is one of the few predictions that Darwin made. Because he made theories about the past, right, of like natural selection and stuff like that. The strong survive, but he made a prediction about the future, which was the diffusion of sympathy, which basically means that as the world progresses, which doesn't seem like the case right now because everything's getting more separatist, but as the world progresses, we will all begin to become more like one. So all those barriers of I'm so and so and you're so and so get broken down, which again doesn't seem like the case right now, but I feel like things go in spikes. And the more that you try to adhere to that separatist, I'm this, I'm that, you're this, you're that, you're defeating your own evolution and humankind's own evolution to all fit into one. And the people who have problems with those things need to get weaned out anyway. You know what I mean?
Because I'll go and be you go. I mean, just by how I just obviously titled you there, like this is something I've actually experienced you deal with, like in just like normal social circumstances, you know, where like because you've got a super interesting story. Your surname basically catches everyone off guard.
Yeah. In hospitals mainly. That's the weird one. I don't know why. There always seems to be like an African man or woman, and they're always like, yeah, I'm at reception, and they're just like, what? How? Yeah. Even to this day, it amazes me that like you know, like, you know,
Give them the background
multiracial.
just before you go in. Give because it's a recording. Just say what your name is.
So yeah, my grandfather is originally from Lagos in Nigeria, and my grandmother is originally from Stuttgart in Germany. And then they came over in the 50s in Great Britain, and they met and they had my dad and my uncle. And then my mother is white British as well. And then yeah, so that's kind of how it came to be. It's almost like this whitewashing process in terms of the skin color. Anyway. But no, I'm with you, Taz, in that sense, man. Because one is it's not important. Like I was saying this with Terry, like, you know, I actually did it to myself sometimes when I'd say, oh, you know, my black friend or my this, and it got to a point where I was like, yeah, but why can't he just be my friend? Why do I have to necessarily pigeonhole him to it? Do you know what I mean? Because it doesn't matter. Like it doesn't matter how they visualize this human being anyway. Like it really doesn't care. So for what reason am I putting them in that same? Am I kind of naming them in that sort of way? And yeah, you know, interracial couples and intermixed relationships have been going on for God knows how long now. You know, at some point it happened thousands of years ago and then went around the world, and then now we've come back full circle. You know, so it's even crazy now that we still having this conversation in 2020 that it's a thing. Oh yeah, it's good for you guys where white people and Chinese people can begin. No, it's as you said, Paz, it's natural evolution, because, you know, at the end of the day, we're getting closer to that understanding of, yeah, we're a species. You know what I mean? We're human beings. We're not defined by our genders or our race or our nationality. You know, we're defined by our actions and I think our morals and our values. That's what we should be. What's the word? That's how we should, you know, sort of applaud people, or at the same time pull them up on their issues. You know,
you shared the sentiment that Taz shared as well, because you the short film that you were prepping to make before, like, everyone got tricked into getting controlled, was that you I'm gonna get a lot of heat over this COVID-19 period. That's my aim. Is that you said something, same thing Taz was just saying about, like, because Mary, your short film, if I'm okay to speak a little bit about that.
Yeah, of course.
That's obviously, I remember in you kind of developing that story, you'd send me a lot of voice notes, or we'd have a lot of talks about how you had to kind of get over that almost like a fear, or like, you know, like this inclusivity where you didn't think this was a story that you could tell in terms of like the culture of the character, to explore that deeper, and how you realize that was kind of the investment for you, was to be able to take some time aside to actually like explore that part of your heritage a little bit more, you know, and remove from this like exclusivity that I'm not allowed to do that, or I'm not allowed to be that person that is representative of this community, which is interesting because, like, you know, Taz is like literally explaining being in that same headspace where it's like, do I need to like try and find a way to you know, on the surface justify why I wanted to explore my own culture, like, you know, just because you guys don't get that, that's a story to me. And I'm just like interested to hear like your thoughts on that, because it seems like you both have gone through something similar.
I just think it's like, at this point in my life, like I'm like 32 years old now, or sorry, 32 years young.
Hey.
And honestly, I don't know a lot about my background or my heritage, primarily because my granddad, unfortunately, his parents passed away when he was kind of young. Like, I think so quick little story, just he wanted to be an orthopedist. He wanted to be a doctor. And basically his parents said that, you know, that wasn't in their best interests. They basically disowned him when he went over to England. So he went to school, went to university, got his degree, you know, became a doctor and a consultant. And by the time he went back to kind of reconcile, they'd already sort of passed away, which was a huge shame, you know, because I feel that no child really wants to be left with that kind of animosity with their own parents, you know, because I think innately we want to impress our parents, you know, it's in our DNA almost, you know, like these are our birth givers. They're the reason that we're alive and on this planet. So ultimately we want to do them proud. But at the same time, you know, if you believe in something strongly enough, you'll go against their wishes at times, you know, for what you believe is right. So in this case, I never got to meet them. I never got to really meet anyone from that side of our family. And I guess this was me realizing that, yeah, life is short, man. And imagine, you know, my granddad's quite old now and, you know, he could die tomorrow. You know, he could die anytime, really. And I'd have nothing to show for that. So I feel it's like I wanted to take this opportunity to explore that more of that side of him and his world. And then, you know, take just kind of more about self-discovery about, you know, maybe there's certain aspects of my personality that probably come from that, you know, without me even realizing. So yeah, it was more like a journey of self-discovery, I guess, in that sense. Yeah, you're right. And I think writing is part of that anyway. I think writing, I don't know about you guys, but for me, I feel like writing is a lot about, you really learn a lot about yourself and a lot about what you're interested in and the kind of things that you feel strongly about. So yeah, it's just kind of a great exercise, I guess, in exploring that side of me.
Or confuse yourself with the things that you didn't know you were interested in and can't explain why you really
Exactly. Yeah.
All right, boys. Well, so
I don't know why I'm obsessed with this thing about fatherhood. Like, I don't know why I'm just obsessed about fatherhood. And I don't know why, because my dad was a great dad. But for some reason, I've always looked for different kinds of father figures, like in every single walk of life that I've been in, and look for different mentors, maybe even one like from books. Like when I was little, I read Evel Knievel's book, and I was like, I want to be like Evel Knievel. And then I read Houdini's book. I was like, I want to be like Houdini. And it's this constant search for almost building your ideal, because a father figure almost represents what you are going to be. And even though I had a great dad who was very loving, and I still love him. I love him to pieces. He never really represented what I wanted to be. So I almost built my own picture of and convinced myself of this idea that I was, you know, like adopted. And I wanted to be this other thing, which I had built up in my head. And that's an obsession I have, which I can't really explain why.
Well, no, that's interesting you said that. I'll share some this weekend. I'll send you over some videos that might actually shed some light on that. Like, Peterson has a really interesting take on this, right? So there's this concept of the belly of the beast, right? So, it's in a lot of Disney fables, Lion King, Simba, Pinocchio the whale, and it's like, so this concept that, and we've actually done it. Me and Roger talking about this a lot with our feature, right? And there's the whole scene that kind of is a very confusing scene that a lot of people probably won't like or get, but it comes from this kind of concept that you have to face the belly of the beast, right? And that at the belly of the beast, that's where you find your father, right? And if you that's like the parable in a lot of Disney stories. And then Peterson's take on that is like, so the representation of the father is a personification of your ultimate self, right? Or it's a role model figure. So it's like the values or the shape of if we're speaking just in the context of being a man or a man, it's the man that you want to be, right? And so when you go deeper into your own self-discovery, down there, it's like you're looking for that representation of the ultimate version of yourself that you believe exists. And so it's a very honest sentiment that you share, that like your dad, for example, you love him, he's a great dad, you know, he's like part of what's made you, and you're a great person. But for the version of yourself that you potentially imagine obtaining, which obviously isn't who you are right now, there's like another version and another version, you've constantly looked for those other like father visions and gone, okay, that seems like in the line of where like I kind of want to go. And then you see it and you're like, oh, okay, that's. And Tony Robbins talks about this as well, the importance of role modeling, because there was an experiment done by these two psychologists who they took a chimp, and they made the chimp. They brought up the chimp for a very short period of time with their child. right? Kid was like under 5 years old. And they wanted to see how much of the behavior of the child that the chimp would adopt, but the reverse happened, and they had to stop the experiment when the child started adopting the behavior of the chimp and became more like a chimp. And so humans are very impressionable. And so if you understand that about ourselves, there's a real value in role modeling, because if you focus enough time and attention on somebody else, the way that somebody else lives their life and their values and the way that they move in the world, and it speaks to you, and you really focus on that, you will become highly impressionable to that behavior and that character, and you will start. Identity is a really malleable thing. There's this idea that I am who I am. It's like, fuck that. One, you don't have a clue who you are. You don't spend enough time. You have no idea how much time you have to spend to know who you are, and none of us do. And two, it's completely malleable. Like on a biochemical level, it's like your brain can completely change, right? So you can completely change. Experiences can completely change you, and so it's like, it's interesting that it's interesting that obviously you became an actor and a writer, because it's like that's so valuable in this medium where you're able to channel different emotions and different identities in yourself, but also to communicate those to other people, because it's like you're doing that with yourself actively all the time. You're like, okay, this is, and in 10 years time, it'll be interesting to see who becomes that vision for yourself that you're focused on, and how that's shaping you even more so, So it's interesting that you refer to it as like, there's a recognition that you're looking for a father figure. Like, that's interesting, because most people just be like, I just role model people. Like me, I just perceive it like, I just role model people. Like, I know I consciously do it, and I knew I used to unconsciously do it, now I do it consciously. But you directly relate it to the term fatherhood, which is a concept that really ties into what, like, some really, like, respected social scientists have also touched upon this idea of like the father identity in the pursuit of our own, like, higher self sort of thing. It's interesting that so I might throw you over to some of that work, and maybe that gives you something.
Yeah, please do, because I thought that was just a whim that only I was going to understand. I didn't know you was going to have a whole like bag of research behind it. So I actually quite like to read it.
Yeah, like I don't
know how you're talking to, boy.
As best as I could, but they will communicate a hell of a lot better than I did. Yeah, I think it will speak to you a lot. Yeah.
And I even do it when I like meet people, like when I meet actors that I really admire. Like when I met Craig on the film I did with him, instantly we got along, and I was like, "You my papa." Yeah, and I have so many papas. You know what I mean? Like the producer of the film, the producer who produced the Stephen Graham film as well. He's like, I always consider him like another dad. Like I call him sometimes, and I have a lot of love for him, and it's like there's like a conglomeration of papas. My real dad is always at the top of that list with me. He's always my real papa. But then I have all these like sub papas that I cradle and hug and talk to like they're my dads. Like I talk to Craig sometimes as well. Like I'll call him, I'll just be like, "So what are you saying? You good? Do you have any advice? I'm going through this right now. What do you think?" And it's almost like you have papas for every different, because like my dad is a very straight shooting, calm man, follows the rules, and that's not me at all. So I know I call my dad my real dad when I want some like the voice of reason. Whereas like if I'm doing something that I know my dad would categorically not do, and I know I'm going to do it anyway, rather than calling him and have him try to talk me out of it, which is going to be unsuccessful because I'm not someone you can talk out of anything. I call someone who like knows that, or I know has gotten into similar kind of trouble or understands that kind of trouble. So I'll call X. I'll not say their name. I'll call X or I'll call Y, and I'll be like, so I'm doing this. And then they'll go, cool. I go, so how do I navigate this? And they'll be like, all right, so try this, this, and this. And that'll be the most, you know what I mean, sound advice. But it's just interesting that we relate it to the word like dad, papa.
This is what I like about this, right? Is it starts very film, and then it just goes, because that's
gravitates.
And that's like naturally what it should be allowed to do. I do always try. I'm trying to get better at this. I'm trying to get better at fitting in like trivia, like thing, a little moment in this thing where there's a trivia thing or a game thing. So, but I'm not good at trivia. So what I do want to do is I want to play a game to wrap up, like a 5-minute game. You're trapped on an island. Well, no, you get deported, right? Social distancing. They're like, right, everyone's got to go to a segregated island for themselves. Sorry, that's the way it's going. So they go, but we'll give you a solar paneled projector and a screen and 3 films that you can take. and then we can take that with you. What are the 3 films?
And
Dickhead.
you first.
Dickhead.
Me?
Yeah.
Okay, so mine are pretty bait, to be honest, because I'm
That's why I want you to
mine
go
are
first.
bait. Yeah, I make that's the thing that's funny about me. Like I make like what I would call like really, you know, kind of dramatic, like really intense, you know, films about human beings. But actually, I love the bait shit. Like, I love it. So, do you know what I mean? Yeah, you got to though, because it's entertainment at the end of the day, man. Film's a film. That's what it's there to do. So I'll go. It's a toss-up between these two because they're like 80s classics, like favorites of mine. But I'll probably stick with. I'll go Predator.
Oh, Predator.
Just because, classic. Just perfect blend of action and comedy for me, black comedy for me, and a little bit of drama in there as well, you know. The second would be, I'd probably have to say Inception, just because it's the Nolan one I watched the most. I've rinsed that film. Even if, like, rightly so to you, we discussed this before, Mr. Waffle explaining that film. But
Mr.
even
Waffle.
now, I'm just like, yeah, I kind of
he loves explaining that film.
But, and it's funny, like, because the character of Arthur, Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character, he's literally there to explain the film for you. That's his job in the whole film. It's great. I love it. And then the last one, I feel like I should really pick something a bit more cultured.
Now you're going to an island, bro. Fuck the
going
culture.
to an island, bro. Like,
yeah,
think about 5 years down the line when there is no one else around you. Like, are you really gonna be honest to yourself?
Yeah. Don't try and bullshit.
I'm gonna say Goodfellas.
Oh,
Yeah. You went semi-culture there, bro. You went semi-culture.
I had to bring it back slightly. Do you know what I mean?
You go Scarface or Goodfellas, you're basically chasing brownie points, but fair.
Ooh, Scarface ain't a bad one, you know.
All right. So Ben went Predator. Just to recap, Ben went Predator. Inception, and then Goodfellas. Good shout though. 3 great films, man. I respect.
Yeah, I think so.
You're gonna have a great time on that island, bro. Taz, go on, mate. What are you saying?
So I'm at a toss-up because I'm like, do I take the films I would watch on the island are the ones that influence the way, like literally the way I am, but they have so much of the shit in them that I like to do on a day-to-day basis that wouldn't just make me go insane at the fact I can't do that anymore.
It's a valid point. It's a valid point. It's worth considering.
If you say what I think you're going to say, one of them has everything. So, yeah, that would probably drive you nuts.
You know which one I'm going to say, innit?
I think I know I know at least one you were going to say.
Tell me, which one is it?
It's a toss-up between Triple X or Top Gun.
and Triple X and...
I was going to say Top Gun would have been up there as another one.
Oh, interesting. Top Gun wasn't in it, but Triple X was definitely in the
toss-up. Well.
It was a toss-up between Triple X and Point Break.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, very good shout.
Because Point Break came before Triple X, and Triple X has a lot of them. Like, does it have the jumping out of planes? I don't think it actually has the jumping out of planes. It has the snowboarding. It has the...
Doesn't he jump out of a plane?
It has jumping off of a bridge.
To the snowboarding.
No, he doesn't jump out. He jumps out of a chopper.
At the beginning, he gets thrown out. On the big one, they get attached. They're all attached, aren't they? And it's kind of out of a plane when it's landing in the middle of Mexico.
No. You don't know the Triple X like I do, bro. So the first scene is he steals a senator's car and he drives off of a bridge with the car and then jumps out of the car with a parachute. Yeah. That's the one. And I don't...
He does.
Would it drive me mad?
Yeah, I think it would.
Sure. but Point Break had surfing and skydiving, which they were my 2 earliest influences. Like I started surfing when I was 11, and to be fair, I'm on an island, so I might be able to fashion some sort of surfboard out of wood. I used to make.
Definitely will.
Definitely still surf.
I might given enough time, I might be able to chip away at it and make some sort of a surfboard. So I'm gonna go Point Break. As one of them. do I want to double up with a triple X as well? Like, do I want a bit of variety in there?
These are the last three films you're ever going to watch, bro.
Yeah, so there's probably best to get a bit of variety in there, innit? Rather than like two of the same thing. All right, I'm going to go Point Break. I'm going to go... See, there's another thing with a comedy, right? Because if I choose a comedy, which I love, after about 10 years, it's not going to be funny no more, is it?
Well, you're on an island, bro. What else is going to be funny?
Well, I don't know. I might find myself a little Wilson.
That's what I was going to throw Castaway out there.
It's probably like if we're thinking logically, it's probably better to bring films with you that are almost informational. So like Into the Wild, Castaway, and try and glean like, you know what I mean, a little how-to guide out of those films. But they're not really my favorite films. I like them, but they're not really my favorite films. I'd go... For some reason, Good Will Hunting keeps popping into my head because I do really love that film.
It's a great film.
So I think Good Will Hunting.
R.I.P.
Point Break. And then what would be the last one? Be something stupid like. Okay, the last one is a toss-up between The Secret Life of Walter Mitty.
Amazing.
It's a great film. I fucking love it.
Is that the Jack Nicholson one?
No,
it's Ben Stiller.
Ben Stiller, yeah.
It's a toss-up between The Secret Life of Walter Mitty and a film that Vince Vaughn and Owen Wilson did about working at Google. What's it called?
Internship.
Internship. I love that film.
Never seen it.
It's like the unofficial Wedding Crashers sequel.
Yeah.
It was like, sort of. Okay, I think I'll go Walter Mitty because I just love the soundtrack.
Hard decisions there, bro. Some hard decisions.
Yeah.
It was thought out though. It was methodical.
No, you know, and the challenge for me is that because I wanted to be like present and listening to you guys, so I didn't think. So now I'm like, I don't actually know what the three films. But I thought about it a lot. I think about this question a lot, but it changes every like 2 days. So the first one's easy. So Drive is happening.
Of course. Any other film would have been stupid. Yeah, of course.
Drive. It's gonna like I could be on an island. I could be in a cave, I could be underwater. Drive is always gonna make me happy. I'm always gonna be like, yeah, I'm gonna have the satin jacket and I'm gonna watch that film and be like, great.
You could make one out of leaves.
Yeah,
make your own jacket.
No, I'll take it with me. It's gonna be with me. There's no way I'm departing from that jacket. And then I'm just going to keep it true to the films that like I've just watched a stupid amount of times to the point where it's like get off the film's jock, which is Zemeckis' Back to the Future.
Oh, nice. Good
I don't think I've ever watched the film as much as that in my life.
Good choice.
And it's about time travel, so like reality, give a fuck from the get-go, you know. And then, it's tough. Third one's really tough.
None of you motherfuckers are thinking logically, though. You ain't thinking about the island element of all this.
Doesn't matter. Okay, so I have thought about that when I was listening to you though, and trying to, and that's what I'm trying to think about now, right? Is so if you have like survival films, it's potentially a falsehood of hope, right? Because the rule is you have to stay on the island. So why the fuck do you want to watch Castaway? Because he's desperate to get off the island, right? I don't want to remind myself that that's a psychology I should be in, right? I also don't want to give myself that ending because he gets off the island and then his missus is like moved on, which is like the harshest endings to a film I've ever seen. So there's no good is going to come out of watching Castaway. You probably like just like build that surfboard, fall off the surfboard and choose to stay under the water and let it end. If you watch Castaway, so I wouldn't go down the road of any of those like survivalist films personally, because the fundamental journey of the main character is survival, like in terms of like getting off the island or maybe staying on the island. The beach might not be a bad shout. I couldn't watch The Beach over and over again. I've seen it enough times and I'm kind of done with The Beach, but I like it every 3 years. I come back to that film like, this is a sick film. And then so I hear you, and I'm thinking of variety too. So like, I got Drive for like my escapism. I got Back to the Future because I've just never ever got bored of it. I've never got bored of it, so I know I can just keep watching that film. And then, but third now, what I'm actually looking for is like my like French dramas that I really love. So like,
I was waiting.
I actually went to Jean-Pierre Jeunet's Amélie at first. That was like the film where I was like, I'm an escapist, man. Like films help me escape, right? So all of them are just like escapist films. So maybe I'm tossing up between like Amélie and
See the wheels turning. Gun to your head. 5 seconds.
I think like Before Sunrise.
There you go.
Yeah, maybe like Richard. Richard Linklater. Because I'm like, I love love, right? And those films are you're basically the third wheel in a conversation for the whole film, and so you feel like you had company with Richard Linklater films because it's just people sitting around talking, like really actually talking about in the way that people really talk. In fact, he is my favorite dialogue writer, if I'm honest. At least in terms of American screenwriting, he just writes films where it's like that is actually how people speak. And they don't speak about the narrative trajectory they're on in his films. They just speak about the thing that's in their head at that point that has nothing. You're quite similar. Like, this is what I like about your writing, Taz, as well. Is like you make an effort to do that. Like a technique that you do that I really like. That is actually something that it's a little tick I've given to one character in my feature that I actually literally became more self-aware of it from your work. So it's a little bit of a nod to you, like completely. Is you like making characters repeat things. Because he loves doing that. He loves making people repeat shit over and over and over. And it's like, but you do it to such a, like you're so like in your face with it, then it becomes a stylistic trope sort of thing.
Yeah.
And that's cool. And so I like dialogue-based films. Like those are the films I try to write, and for that exact reason, it's that you just feel like you're in a conversation, and so you know. And I love love stories. I love seeing like, it's so hard to write a film where a man or a woman or two opposing love interests like come together, and then like fall in love, and then without it just being like, well, I see where this is going from the get-go. He's so sick at that. He's like so sick at just like they're just walking around Venice the whole time, just chatting and getting like and kind of beefing, but like they're getting closer and they're getting more into each other. And I just love those. I love all of those films. I couldn't really pick between them. Maybe the first one.
And also, can I just interject? If you had that Before Sunrise film with you for that long, for that amount of time, because when you're watching a film like that, as brilliant as the film is, there is so much in it that you just inevitably lose stuff. Like you pick up you can't quote. It's not like a film where like if you watch Point Break enough, you can pretty much quote every single line. You know what I mean? If you or like Tarantino is very easy to quote as well, because it has like a rhythm that sticks in your head very easy. Whereas like Linklater's doesn't. You can't. I don't know anyone, and I'm sure there's someone, but there's probably a lot fewer people who can quote lines from fucking Before Sunrise or like chunks. You know what I'm saying? Like a whole scene than any other type of film. And because of that, there's inevitably so much dexterity that you will not really know is there, but will be there. And that's kind of why you like it, but you don't know that's why you like it. But if you had the film for that long, to the point where you were able to quote the fucking film, you will be like, that's what that little fucking comma means. That's what that little word means. that's in that place for that reason, and I never knew. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Every time you watch that film, or like every single time I watch that film, it feels like a new conversation. That's what I can't get about his work. It's like, how many times I need to see the film? It's like you say, it's almost like I don't know I know the dialogue, but it's like the conversation still seems like a first-time conversation, because it is a first-time conversation, and it unfolds like a first-time conversation. So even if you're aware of it, you wind up then being able to pay attention to newer things, because you also come in with more context the next time you watch it, so you know more about them, and so you're like looking for things that like seem more obvious now each time that happens. I just think that he's one of very few screenwriters that does that really well without trying, you know. And he tries a tremendous effort, I'm sure, but it's just like, that's the one film when I think about a film that would make me feel like I had company. It was between that and Blue is the Warmest Color, were two films where I was like,
Ooh.
if I had that on an island, I'd feel like I had a relationship. So I'd want a relationship.
That's another smart thing that you just did, that I'm like, oh man, I'm rethinking my choices now. It's like, actually, do you want to feel like, if you're on an island, do you want a film that's going to make you feel like you got a girlfriend? Because that's quite important.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? To build that relationship. It's almost like, you know, when you're watching a TV series and then it gets to like the 7th season and it's done, and the last line of the last scene and it's finished, and then the credits are rolling, and you kind of feel like you lost a friend.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Kind of feel like you don't get to go home to your friend anymore. Not that I don't really watch many series anymore. Like, there's only really 3 or 4 like series that I've actually watched all the way to the end, because I never have the time. But like the few that I have, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna miss you, man. Whereas if you had like a film that makes you feel like you have a relationship, you'd be like, and you was just watching it on repeat, you probably form like a whole new backstory for it.
Yeah. That's kind of, I feel like I would personally need that. Like I'd need like, where at least for 2 hours I can experience a relationship, and then, you know, be like, okay, cool. Actually, I'm alone on this island. I'm gonna die by myself. But that was nice.
You know what we just fucked up? You know what all 3 of us just fucked up?
Go.
We didn't pick a film with a great sex scene, because God knows we would need it at some point.
I did.
Does it have a great sex scene?
It's got a 10-minute, arguably unnecessary,
savage,
just straight up sex scene, like for 10 minutes. It's a 10-minute long sex scene. It's like,
yeah, but you didn't pick it though, so you fucked up. You didn't pick it.
But I threw it out there. That's what counts. I thought about it, you know. That's what the relationship aspect, right? Like, before sunrise, right, is like that feeling of like, if I met someone on the island and I fell in love with them. Whereas Blue Valentine is like, if I'm in a relationship, that's got the kind of how we met part, but it's also got the relationship and like the lust and like their relationship in that film is very like this, the sexual chemistry they have is very much like the strong foundation of their relationship, even without spoiling the film, even in how their relationship winds up unfolding. And it's an entire arc of a relationship, that film. And so it's like, that for some reason that film is like the film where I'm like, oh, and that's interesting, right? Because that's 2 feet. That's a lesbian relationship. Yeah, that's one. I'd put it up there for the film. One of the films that it's like that and Blue Valentine are 2 films that taught me so much about relationships. Where I'm like, it doesn't have to be, you know. That's what I'm saying. All of this stuff of like it doesn't matter. Like, it's a universal language. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it really doesn't matter. That's one of my films that literally I can watch over and over again, and it will always stir that thing in me where I'm like, oh, I love the hustle and bustle and confusion and the annoyance and the beauty of the relationship.
The uncertainty,
It does, and it's a story about 2 women, right? And it's one of the top films up there where I experienced that. So it's like,
I want to add 2 things to what you just said. So one of them's a wrap-up question, and the other one's just a statement. Is that on that, what you just said about learning relationships from that film, that has nothing to do with the kind of relationship you had. With writing, the main person who inspired me to actually write, like, and that I could actually do something, was a group of girls. And I've said it to them before. So do you guys know Bossy Forum?
Yeah.
I don't know.
So it's like a forum for women in the arts, right? And the 3 founders of the Bossy Forum are 3 girls called Yona, Laura, and Molly. And they put on a play called Sad Girls, which was on, I don't even remember what it was. It was like this little tiny pub theatre near London Bridge. And my friend Alina took me to see it. And I was still in drama school before I got kicked out. And I remember I went to see the play and there was like 50 people there, maybe 40, 30 people. Like, it was not many people. And I saw the play and it was funny. It was about something silly. It was like about these 3 girls kidnapping a pop star, but the play was so good. Like, it made me laugh. I proper like felt for the characters. I was there with them. Do you know what I'm saying? And also the fact that I was like, so these 3 girls just put on a play. They just put on a play, and they just got like 30 people to show up. Like, I was astounded by them, and they made me realize that you could do that, because I never thought that you could actually do that. And it's ironic because like everything that I write tends to be so like male driven, and I get a lot of slack for. I get a lot of stick for like not writing particularly female-driven stories, whereas like they were the ones that inspired me to do it in the first place. And I say it to them all the time. I'm like, you guys are fucking dope, and I produce something with them, and I really want them to do well, and I believe in them so much. But yeah, that's like that language is universal. It's like somebody doing well is somebody doing well that inspires you, or somebody doing something, something that inspires you, regardless of how different they are to you. Sure. And to wrap up the question, on this island, if you could take one item with you, it could be large, it could be small. Be careful if you say a car, because there's not going to be any gas stations there. So the tank of gas you got is the tank of gas you have it. Because I thought about motorcycle, but then I was like, I won't be able to do much with
one
it.
Item.
Skateboard.
One item.
Skateboard. Fair.
There's no tarmac there.
I was going to say, on sand? What are you going to do with that?
No. Yeah. Doesn't matter.
Fair.
Or make a road. Or fashion a road.
Hard. I like that. What do you say, Taz?
No, you first.
Oh, fuck. I wanted more time.
Because mine's predictable.
You're going to say wingsuit.
No, why would I say wingsuit?
Because you'll just jump out the bathroom and pretend you can skydive.
The drive jacket.
Drive jacket. I
mean, I feel like that doesn't count because I have that anyway. Like, I don't know who the man is that thinks he can get that off me and try and tell me that I'm not allowed that jacket. That guy, Conor McGregor, could come through and I'd be like, rare. It's not happening.
Like, you can pick something else, because the drive jacket you can have on your person. Like, it's not. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. A mirror.
Ooh.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
One, if I went insane, I could talk to myself like in a way that would make sense with the mirror, and then if it would give me a constant goal, because I could see changes in myself, and so that would keep me self-conscious enough. So it might be like, oh mate, I'm getting a bit. I might get like obsessed with like keeping my body in shape, or I might notice my hair is getting a bit mad. So that might give me a couple of days where I just decide to like braid my hair. You know what I mean? It will keep me self-conscious and objective and outside of myself. Or if I go insane, I could like that would probably end up being like a channel for me to like direct the insanity in some respect, Worst comes to worst, is glass. Can maybe end it. Like, there's a few different ways that could be useful, I think. I don't know.
Very, very good. I would pick. Depends. Do I know where this island is? Or can I choose where this island is? Or is it just
let's say you can choose it. Let's say you can choose it. Why not?
Okay, so if it's somewhere warm, I'm taking my surfboard.
Nice. Nice. Yeah. That's the best one.
Because if it was cold,
that's a great one.
If it was cold, I was taking my wetsuit.
Oh, yeah, fair. Yeah, I would toss up. I wouldn't be. I'd because then it's like I could spend the rest of my life now getting good at that, and that would take me years, right? So I could just start a new hobby whilst I'm there. That would be pretty sick. That'd be pretty sick. All right, gents, listen, that was. I don't want it to end, but I've actually got another call, so I need to hop off. But that was amazing, and Taz, thank you for your time.
Yeah, man.
Thank you.
For your time, and like,
that
we'd
was
love to
fun.
have you on, mate. We're gonna have to have you on again, but partner you up with someone else equally as epic as you. So we'll have a think about how we can get something more epic on. I want each one to just get more and more and more epic and more epic and more epic each time. So, but yes, lads. Any famous last words? This is a thing that we start doing. Famous last words. Ben, go.
May you live in interesting times.
feel like I've got to say something really philosophical, you know.
May you live in interesting times.
Don't worry about how you feel today, because you'll probably feel different tomorrow.
Oh, that's awesome, man. That's awesome. Get money, fuck bitches.